Welcome. Okay, I got the thing that says this meeting is being recorded, so I will click continue and continue. Hello, welcome to the Careers in Comedy and Entertainment panel event. You are in the right place if that is what you are here for. My name is Amy Doe. I use she, her pronouns, and I am an exploration ambassador at the DePaul Career Center. I'm also a student here. I study in the Digital Communications and Media Arts program, and I actually just spent today putting the finishing touches on my thesis, so that's how I'm doing. Dagny, would you like to introduce yourself and talk a little bit more about this event?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Dagny Hill. I'm the MCAE ambassador. I go by she, her, hers pronouns. I am able to help you with resume review, cover letter review. You can schedule one-on-one appointments with me for this office. But me and Amy also work together to put together this event and create programming for you all to enjoy and you all to learn more about these careers. So without further ado, do we want to go around the panel and you all can just introduce yourselves before we get into the questions?
Yeah, totally. Just so that we don't have people talking over each other, I will call y'all out in the order that you are listed in the program. Our panelist from The Daily Show with Trevor Noah X is going to be joining us about 10 minutes late. But first, Daymon, would you care to introduce yourself? Say a little bit about who you are, what you do?
Yes, I'd love to set the tone. I'm Daymon Royster. I am in Chicago right now. I am an improv and writing teacher at Second City. I also write. I just did a writing fellowship with OutFest in December, and then I also act. I just guest starred on Work in Progress that films here in Chicago. And I also co-founded an improv theater during the pandemic. I love to be busy.
I love that. Thank you so much, Daymon. Maureen M., would you like to go next?
Yes, hello. I'm Maureen Monahan. Rare occurrence. I feel like that there's multiple Maureens in any situation. Very exciting for me. I'm Maureen Monahan. I use she, her, hers pronouns. I'm currently based in New York. I am currently a full-time performer on Tuning Out the News on Paramount Plus. I've written for Tuning Out the News, Art Cartoon President. I was an Onion Fellow, and I took and taught classes at the Second City and their Onion writing program. I think that's everything.
Totally. Thank you so much. Maureen K., would you like to go next?
Hi, I'm Maureen Kuhl. Also a lovely experience to be here with another Maureen. I am currently in Brooklyn, New York, and I am currently a footage researcher at The Tonight Show. And when I was in Chicago at DePaul, I took classes at Second City and The Annoyance. And here I was a page at NBC, and I have performed at The Pit and UCB, and have written and directed some things as well, some digital sketches. So,
fantastic. Thank you so much, Carolyn.
Hi, y'all. I'm Carolyn Moore. I am a features contributor at The Onion right now, and an actor with Grossman and Jack. I've been at The Onion probably for about a year and a half. And before that, I was doing stuff at the Second City Conservatory. And before that, I was an acting major at the theater school.
Love an alum. Alex?
Hey everybody, I'm Alex. I use he, him pronouns. Currently I'm a script coordinator at Netflix. Before that, I was also a writing fellow at The Onion. And before that, I was a freelance contributor for a few years. And before that, I was an unemployed improv actor on 2 house teams at the former Iowa West Theater.
I love that for you and for the community. So those are all except one of our panelists. Again, X will be joining us shortly, hopefully. And basically what this panel is designed to do is give y'all, all the participants who are here, the chance to basically ask questions and like pick these people's brains and learn more and hear their stories about industry and school and work-life balance and all that kind of stuff. Life during the pandemic, getting your foot in the door of the industry. So we as moderators have a couple of questions drafted already, but Dagny will be in the chat the whole time. So if you have questions, comments as the event is going, please feel free to literally say, anything that you would like. And then Dagny.
I said, don't be shy.
Yes, please don't be shy. So I'm going to, Dagny, did you want to ask the first question? Or
yeah, I'll get us rolling.
Totally.
Okay, so if you guys could tell us a little bit about how you came into the role you're in today, but then also what a normal workday looks like for you.
If any of you are raring to just answer the question right away, feel free to, I don't know, it seems weird, but maybe give a wave or something like that. Otherwise, I'll just start calling.
I'll go.
Thank you, Maureen. Go for it.
Well, I feel like I should disclose that I didn't really do any comedy like anything in college. I took DePaul's, I was a screenwriting minor and I took screenwriting classes, obviously. And then I also took Michael McCarthy's late night writing class with Alex, actually. And that was great. And it got me really interested in the writing aspect of comedy. And then, but I didn't really get interested in performing as much, or it didn't really feel like an option for me until I randomly took a part-time night job at the Second City working as a host, which is the worst job in the building. You're taking out the trash and yelling at drunk people and cleaning up drunk people's puke. And it is a very hard job, but you get to watch all of the shows as they go on in the theater. So really just seeing those shows go up night after night and seeing how they would evolve and how they would build a sketch show based on very simple premises or improv, that really got me interested in sort of the craft of sketch and comedy and late night writing. And so from there, I got involved in the Chicago improv community. And concurrently, I also had grown up reading The Onion, loving The Onion, and tried my hand at starting to write Onion headlines. It's not easy. It's a very specialized skill. So it took a few tries, but ultimately I wound up in the Onion Fellowship, which really opened my eyes to satire and really helped me hone those skills. And from there, I started submitting packets for TV writing jobs and auditions for things. And that's kind of how I wound up working for these two Stephen Colbert produced shows, Our Cartoon President and Tuning Out the News. So yeah, it was kind of a twisty turny journey that I didn't always know that I was gonna wind up doing comedy, but I'm very glad that I did.
Thank you so much, Maureen. And before we continue, X, welcome. Would you like to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Yes, I'm sorry I'm late. I was coming from San Antonio to Houston and we had a little bit of traffic. Are there 3 questions? Is it just your name, your sign, your age? What are we?
Whatever you would like to say. Yeah.
Okay, my name's X. I'm a Leo, obviously. Thank you. No, so I guess Amy told you guys I am a writer at the Daily, was a writer. I recently left because I am in a show, excuse me, in a show for NBC that's going to be coming out in the fall. So I just wanted to take some time off of that. But I was at the Daily Show for 3 years. I'm an actor, writer, and producer. So during my time before I started at the Daily Show, I was producing plays and just only doing theater. I started performing at 8. I started auditioning seriously around 12, and I started producing at 19. I started producing just theater and plays. Like every actor, I quit. Okay. And it got to be a lot because a lot of rejection. I'm also plus size. And then, people are starting to learn terms about Afro-Latina now, but I'm Black and Mexican. And they were just kind of what? What does it mean? So I just, the rejection got to be too much. So I quit for 2 years. But during that time, I went to film school. I did everything behind the scenes because I am not a 9-to-5 bitch. I am not a nurse. Do not ask me to do anything in administrative. No. So I did makeup. I went to film school. I did costume design, did everything behind the scenes, fell in love with acting again when I came to New York on vacation. That's why my name on Instagram is $80 in a suitcase, because I came there on vacation and just stayed. And when I stayed, that's all I had. When I fell back in love with acting, I wanted to do theater. That's what I thought. But every role that I was auditioning for, I would make it funny. Like, it would be fences, but I would be like, what's around that fence? You know, I was just doing bits. I didn't know to call it bits. You know, it's just, especially like when you're Black, you come from like theater and you come from church. Like, all you know, like, we didn't know there was a term called improv. You just like, we just said you just make it up. Like, you're on stage. People can see you. So you need to fucking say something. So I just kept doing that, and I was just obviously not booking because this was a fiddler on the roof, not a joke on the roof. Like, what are you doing? And so my friend was like, X, you're really funny, bitch. You should do the pit. And I'm like, the pit? What is that? And she was like, you should do improv. And I was like, what is improv? So then I looked up #1 school. And then Childish Gambino's face popped up for UCB. I was like, bet, I'm going there. And so I went to UCB, and it was so white. I was just like, this is Snow White, my Lord. And I was like, this isn't funny. What is this? And so my homegirl was like, well, you should apply for the diversity scholarship because it's free. Because classes are like $450. And I think they've gone up in the pandemic, which is what? And so when I went there and I did an interview for the diversity scholarship, I got it. And I literally like took my first class and I was like, hi. I was like, oh shit, this is what I've been looking for. Because it's like theater and comedy make a baby, and that's improv. And I had been wanting to do comedy, but didn't really know it. And when you're like just coming from where I come from, like all I know is Comic View and Def Comedy Jam. So I thought the only route for comedy is stand-up. I didn't know that there was improv and people get paid for it, you know, not a lot, but you can't get paid for it to do improv and sketch. And, you know, I knew it Live in Color, but I thought those were skits. You know, I didn't know that there was a format. So it was a whole new world opened up for me. And so since I've been producing since I was 19, I realized like, oh, I don't like this about comedy shows and being like an actor. I just didn't like the fact that so many comedians were very like unorganized, lax. They didn't really promote their shit. Like the shows weren't ran properly. And I was like, this is so, and they thought it was funny. And I was like, oh my God, I just made a flyer last night. I'm crazy and I'm funny. I'm like, no, you're not professional and this is shit. So I started seeing my own sketch comedy show called Who Made the Potato Salad, and it stars and is created by Black people and people of color, and we've been running now for 4 years. And that's how I met Amy, because she submitted for our late night workshop, and she had an amazing packet, and over 100 people submitted, and she was chosen, and it was all people of color that were mentored by Black people and POCs from The Daily Show, Amber Ruffin, Jesus and Mero. And so it's very important for me to community. I'm a community-based person, so it's not enough for me to get, I want to lift as I climb. So that's the goal. And, you know, I went to The Daily Show with 67 cents in my account. Didn't even know the producer that I was doing improv with was a producer there. I had my bags packed. I was ready to go back to LA. It had been 5 years. And then I had an interview with Trevor on Wednesday. I got hired Saturday. And I was there for 3 years.
Fast.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was insane. I was like, Trevor's on drugs. Why did you hire me? And so now I'm here. I'm still producing my own show. So when I say I act, write, and produce, I do all 3 of those things, and I do it all with the intention to serve my community and live out my purpose. It's bigger than a check. It means more to me than just a role or a joke. It's like what I'm supposed to be doing.
Thank you so much, X. I mean, Yes. I think it's so interesting to compare and contrast your experience X with Maureen's, because I remember, Maureen, you were saying that you didn't really awaken to this idea of performance as a career path until, when you were in college, basically, and got this service job that led you to kind of get your foot in the door, which leads me to the question for the rest of the panelists. How did you get your foot in the door, and was performance something that was like always kind of inherent in you, or like the entertainment industry, was that always a goal? How did this kind of career path happen for the rest of you?
I can go. I feel like my experience is actually pretty similar to Maureen's in that I was a film major at DePaul and I moved out to LA. I graduated a year early because I just really wanted to live in Los Angeles. Probably moved out there a year or two early, didn't really fully realize what I was getting into. And, after being unemployed for a while, thinking, why am I even in the city? The one thing that I gravitated to that sort of made LA at least feel like a home for me was the iOS theater, where I became like an intern and was doing very similar grunt work, 3 nights a week in exchange for classes. And I'm not someone who approaches improv as any sort of career path. I don't really consider myself an actor. That's not my thing. I just like to perform. I kind of view improv as being like writing and acting at the same time. So I came at improvisation from the standpoint of a writer primarily. What I think is valuable at that isn't just that like it's valuable to perform in front of a crowd and it's very valuable to get that experience. But for me, what was valuable was like having a community of other writers for the first time. At least from my perspective, writing can be like a very solitary thing and you don't really know if you're doing it right. Sometimes you're like embarrassed to show your work to other people because you don't know if they're going to judge you. And just being immersed into a community of, other writer performers kind of helped me get over those insecurities and like build like those relationships with other writers so that you can actually like get better creatively yourself. I don't think anyone does it in a vacuum. If they do, I'm very jealous because I would like that skill. But for me, not that necessarily led to any one specific job, but I think having that community of peers helped build that confidence in me so that when other opportunities came up, I was far more prepared to like meet the moment. I don't really know if that answers the question now that I've like started talking for a while, but that's my bit.
No, totally. Maureen, you were also kind of motioning to talk. Did you have something to add?
Yeah, sure. So I actually also went to the theater school. So I was very much a theater gal. I was a directing major. And I think I was like a year or two ahead of you, Carolyn. But I thought that theater was going to be my life. And this sort of feels like a cliche now, but also I'm so sorry. I do have roommates that are having a great time in the kitchen. But I thought that it sounds like a cliche now, but I think I thought that people don't really do comedy as a career. That's sort of like a fun thing to like watch on TV, but like what's the career path for that? So I would argue that I took a very like corporate route, which was the Nbc Paige Program for me. And I thought it was like very much a long shot. You guys know the saying, I'm sure you got to know somebody. And I was like, I know absolutely no one, but I have literally nothing to lose. I actually also moved to LA briefly because I was like, I'm going to be a writer. And I was like a nanny for a while. And I was like, I'm not writing anything. And so I was like, I have nothing to lose. I'm going to apply for the Paige program. I should also note, I briefly worked at the Sundance Film Festival, which was like also a phenomenal experience as far as like indie filmmaking and being around a group of people that were just incredibly supportive of the arts. So that was like a very just like really good community of people. But so I got into the Nbc Paige program, and that I would argue is very much my like foot in the door.
Could you talk a little bit about what that program is?
Yeah, the best way I can describe it is that it's like sort of a fellowship for television right out of college. It is sort of like an elevated internship. It is full-time. You do sort of different rotations within NBC. So I worked at SNL, but I also worked at NBC News, which was actually like a great experience for me because I love like political comedy. So I was able to have a news experience as well as a comedy experience, and then combine those to what I do today now at The Tonight Show, which is sort of news and comedy together. So yeah, it's a rotational program. I treated it a lot like applying to grad school. Like you have to write essays, and it's a long interview process. And like I said, I was very terrified that not knowing anyone was not gonna, get me anywhere. But it didn't matter, I guess. Like they were looking for people that had just like good experience doing. Like I always tell the story that in my Paige interview, I ended up talking about the fact that I worked at Target in high school, and they were like, "Tell us about that." And I was like, I worked at Target in high school. Like I cleaned toilets, and like, dealt with people returning shoes. And they were like, "No, like we really want to hear about like your customer service experience." And I do think that like somewhat related to some of the stuff that I had to do in the Paige program. So I think my advice always with that is just like, don't go like running out putting your high school job on your resume, but like don't discount those experiences as good stories to tell, to show your work ethic and to show I don't know, something that might not seem connected, but it is.
That's really fascinating. Carolyn, when Alex was talking about like finding a sense of community, you were like nodding. Did you have something to add about that?
I'm definitely guilty of that like super aggressive head nod. Like
it is deeply helpful to me as a moderator. So please like do your silent theater in your little boxes, and I will find a way.
Okay, it's either the nodding or like an aggressive snap.
Yes, give me this. Yes, absolutely.
No, I think a lot of people can think of comedy as just being stand-up or just being like a solitary thing where you find your own voice and they just see like single stars and are like, okay, I just have to like go to college and then somehow become a comedy star or something. But so much of that is rooted in community. And I think that that's a super important part of the comedy world. Not only is it just like, building friendships and connections, but it's building trust and collaboration with a huge group. So I know while Alex and I were at DePaul, we were both part of something called DePaul Detour, which was a satirical comedy magazine. And I think we were both editor-in-chief at separate times, but just being able to like live workshop with a group of people who you genuinely trust to say like, hey, that is an amazing idea, or that idea is absolute shit. Do not say that again. Like having a group of people who you trust to move forward with an idea is super important in when you're at this age, especially in creating your voice and finding what that might be for you. So I would say community has been a big part of at least my comedy development as well.
Totally. And Carolyn, while we're here, did you want to talk a little bit about, how you ended up where you are right now?
For sure. Yeah. So the summer before freshman year, I was like 17 years old and applied to DePaul Detour with probably the most embarrassing like collection of satirical articles I can describe to this day. I found it a couple of years ago in my email drafts and I was like, oh my God. So
tell us. We want to know.
I don't even know what it was. It was like, I'm trying to think of what the actual headlines were, but they were, I think it was like about a McDonald's, or I don't know what it was, but it was very, just not good. So I went from there doing acting stuff. I was at the theater school, which their whole thing is break you down and then build you back up. So I think that is kind of a part of why I'm in comedy too, is that buoyancy. And I was talking a little bit about, that crazy rejection that you get in performance. Like you just feel like months and months go by and no one cares about what I say or who I am, or my body's the wrong size, or my voice is too low, or whatever it is. Someone is always going to say no to you. So having that buoyancy and that able to confirm in yourself that this is something that you are able to do and not depending on others for that is definitely a skill to build. and just saying, you know what, I know I should do this. And whether or not this person right now can see that, or this opportunity right now is for me, I know that my general path is something towards comedy or towards performance. So that buoyancy is super important too.
Totally. Daymon, did you want to talk a little bit about your journey?
I'd love to, Amy. Thank you. This is so nice. I need these words as well. So thank you to everybody. Yeah, my journey. Gosh, I definitely wanted to become a writer, and I think what Carolyn and Alex were saying, definitely community. When I got to Chicago, I found that there wasn't really a writer community here. Everybody was doing improv, so I was like, well, I guess I have to do some improv, and so I found, like a true found what do you call it, a found family here in like my improv friends and everything, and after doing some classes, I ended up getting into Second City's diversity program, the Bob Curry Fellowship. And I did that for, gosh, it was a 3-month-long program. And then we had a big showcase, and that's how I got my first agent, because the agents actually came to that. So that was really cool. And, after it was done, they asked me like, oh, what do you want to do? Like, what path do you want to follow? And I was just so tired of watching bad improv. I was like, can I teach? Because I was tired of, everyone was so bad, and I knew exactly how to fix it, and I still stand by that. And they were like, oh, sure, the easiest job we can give you, yeah, we'll make you a teacher. So started teaching at Second City, and then I went over to IO Chicago, RIP, and I taught there. And it was just so nice to like do all of that, because I ended up I had no idea I was building a reputation for myself, so people respected me as a teacher, which is crazy. And then when the pandemic hit, a group of former IO Chicago people came together to make a new improv theater. We're called The Lantern right now, and they asked me to join. And so we're doing some workshops, and we just had like an outdoor show 2 Sundays ago, and we're looking for a space. So if anybody knows of a place, we would love to know. We'd love to go there.
Totally. Thank you so much, Daymon. And that actually is a great segue into a question that I have for the rest of the panelists as well. How has your work adapted to the pandemic, and what kinds of changes do you think will continue, or like industry trends in the way that work happens in your specific field? I would love to know about what the past year has been like for you. Yeah, Carolyn?
Yeah, so I have like kind of a bit of a 2-part answer. So right now I'm just doing remote work for the Onion. So we're all just like, submitting stuff from our computers in our houses right now. But something that the pandemic, I think, has affected a lot of things is a smaller reliance on institutions. And what I mean by that is that people are figuring out finally that they can make cool shit with their friends, and that they can be the source of their own creative growth, and that they don't necessarily need a big name or a big business to fuel that growth. So I think COVID has broken down a lot of those kind of scarier ideas of, I need to write for the Onion to be successful. I need to be in the Paige program. I need to be at Second City. If you are beginning with yourself, that is a good way to break down if you feel kind of scared to apply to anything like that. I think that's a positive that's come out of COVID.
Totally. Maureen, I saw you nodding. Does that resonate with you?
Which I think I would.
Yeah, Maureen M. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with that. I think that's really accurate. Like, I think that the pandemic has given birth to a lot of people like giving sort of doing their own thing, and not really having to rely as much, or kind of just like showing how institutions can fail us, and can fail their communities, and how it might be better to not rely on them for external validation, and to sort of follow your own path, and to do your own thing, and to also like redefine success for yourself, because it's not, like you can't measure your own success against someone else's, and which is also maybe being measured by an external sort of institution that itself is very flawed. I would also say, for me personally, so I moved to New York full time to start writing and performing on Tuning Out the News on February 2nd, 2020.
Oh my goodness.
So I had about a month and a couple of weeks until like everything imploded. And I'm like coming at you right now from my bedroom, where I also is all of my workspace. So for all of 2020, basically, I was writing and performing on a TV show from home, and that like I wish I could be more like uplifting about it, but it was really hard. That's like the reality, is just that one of the biggest things that experience taught me is the importance of boundaries with your work that are not always going to be respected by the institutions that you work for. Because I think and maybe other people on the panel can relate to this, but I think many employers would take advantage of the fact that there is this blurred line between the home and the workspace, and that made things really hard. So it was really a good lesson in kind of asserting yourself, and kind of like, I mean, people say like self-care, but it is like a form of self-care to establish boundaries between your work life and your home life. Yeah, so that was probably my biggest takeaway from the experience of making a TV show from home in a pandemic.
Totally. And I'll definitely ask more specifics about that, because I'm just curious about what that even means. But Alex, when Maureen was talking about, how just the past year and like work-life balance, I saw you nodding. Does that like resonate with you?
I actually have an unorthodox case, I suppose, in which I probably might not even have my current position had it not been for remote work, because I live in Chicago, and there's all these writers' rooms that are being forced to go virtual, which means they can pluck writers' assistants from people that don't necessarily live in Los Angeles. And so I live in Chicago right now, so had the pandemic never happened, I potentially may not have even had this opportunity unless I, moved all the way back to Los Angeles and crossed my fingers again. So I don't know, maybe like one potential benefit that I hope goes forward is like, obviously being in a Zoom writer's room is not the same as being in person. It's a lot more difficult to establish comedic rhythms and, to get to know the fellow writers that you're working with. But the expanded access that it also gives for like writers and script coordinators and writers assistants from other locations to actually work on something that you might not have had the chance to. I hope we can find some way to keep doing that forward, because I feel like that's one silver lining, I guess, that like I happen to benefit from at least.
Totally.
Okay, and we actually do have a question in the chat. Claire accidentally sent it to me privately, so I'm going to go ahead and voice it for her. But Claire asked, I know when starting out, it is important to take every opportunity presented to you. But do you have any tips or tools to navigate those that may be less beneficial or exploitative of your eagerness? And then also, she has a super practical question. What platforms do you think are the best when searching for internships, jobs, or exposure?
That is a fantastic question.
Okay, so she oh, go ahead.
No, go.
I was just gonna ask, can you repeat those questions again?
Yeah.
That's exactly
it doesn't slip from my memory.
Exactly what I'm
Dagny, could you actually just copy and paste that message into the general chat so that we can all look at it?
I will run it back. Okay, but I'll read it again for you all. I know when starting out, it is super important to take every opportunity presented to you. But do you have any tips or tools to navigate those that may be less beneficial or exploitative of your eagerness?
Okay, when you say, because that's like complicated to say like less beneficial, I feel like if it doesn't compromise your morale, or if like I just feel like it's all beneficial. I have I was a gaffer. I did grip and electric. I've done any and every job. I did costumes. I did makeup. I was a PA. I've done so much background work. I can't even like begin to talk about it. But I can't tell you from every one of those instances, the people that I've met and I cultivated relationships with, and it's why I have everything I have now. So I don't see how it's less beneficial, because one thing, like I had hosted a writer's assistant panel, because writer's assistants, this everybody fucking listening who wants to be a writer, you need to look at being a writer's assistant. Everybody wants to be a fucking writer. Everybody's like writer, 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 writer. It is really like not talked about enough how much a writer's assistant and a script coordinator is like an entryway in there. And our writer's assistant is fucking incredible, Katie, and she's the funniest bitch, and she pitches shit that's been on television, right? Like, they have allowed her to do that. Now, everybody is not like that, you know, at other shows that shall remain nameless. I know writers assistants there, they don't do that shit. But don't just be so focused on being a writer. Like, if there's a job to be a writer's assistant, that isn't less beneficial. If you genuinely want to write, why not be a PA? Why not download footage? Like, why not be an executive assistant? Like, it's all beneficial. As long as they're not compromising your morale, nobody, you know, it ain't no Harvey Weinstein shit going on, you know, just, and then in that case, you call the authorities. But if it's not that, then I don't see how it's less beneficial. Now, exploitative of your eagerness, first of all, love that term. Very good. But I would say if someone is exploiting you, you gotta go. Like, there's never a time where someone is like, you know, using you or abusing you, or you express their boundaries like, hey, I know I'm your executive assistant and I can be available to you from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. After that, I cannot be available. And they keep calling you, you gotta go. Fuck that. No, respect yourself. Okay? Period. So I feel like that, I hope I answered that. When you say, what was the second part, Dagny? The platforms?
Yep. What platforms do you think are the best when searching for internships, jobs, or exposure?
All of them. All of them. You go to Disney, you go, NBC has NBC Late Night Writers Workshop, you go to ABC, Hulu has some, and I really feel like, this is what I will say. I love interns. There's not an intern at the Daily Show the whole time I was there that I did not meet, shake hands, know, probably still talk to this day, because I've been there and I know what it's like. And when you're an intern, you're nervous, right? You don't know, like, because it is fucked up, but it is a hierarchy at late night shows. And as a writer, it's like, this is the writer of shit. And I'm like, hi, what's your name? I want to, you know, I think it's not just enough to get the internship, right? Fill it out. Don't be annoying, right? But make those connections. Talk to people. So you can get all the internships that you want. You can intern with Kenya Barris and never talk to him. Never talk to anybody else. You're just there. You get the coffee. You fucking leave. So I think another step after that, when you get the opportunity, is you advocate for yourself. That you go hard for you, period.
Absolutely. Did any of the rest of the panelists have something to add to that? Or should we go on to the next question?
I would just add really quickly, I think that there's such an emphasis on, I think it's really important to be kind to yourself and patient with yourself, especially in this field, which can be so brutal and so full of rejection. And I don't think that you should ever worry about like wasting your time necessarily, or like, I need to get to this point by the time I'm this age. And like, if I waste my time at this job, then I'm not gonna reach that point. I think, you know, like X said, and like Maureen mentioned in her Paige interview, I don't think there are any experiences that are wasted. I think you just need to keep an open like mind and heart toward learning things from every experience that you go through. That being said, if you ever find yourself in a just from touching on the like exploitation point, if you ever find yourself at a job where your bosses start to refer to everyone as a family, run, because that's like that's a sign that you're being exploited. Like, that's not, your job is not your family.
Maureen.
No.
Girl. We're gonna talk later, because the family, I literally, my assistant, who I love, and he's definitely needs to go higher in his career. And I told him, what the fuck are you doing? You need a goal. But he applied somewhere and they were like, yeah, she was just, and it's a big name. She was like, yeah, the person who interviewed, she was like, you know, we really kind of like a family. So, you know, like, you know, if we needed to use your car to get to her, I was like, Absolutely not. Like, Maureen, thank you. That's great. Great advice.
I just wanted to clarify with the question. It's less about like like what role is beneficial, but I guess like snuffing out those situations that are more exploitative, but like in a coded kind of way. I guess that's more of like a person to person question, but it is less about like the position and more just like kind of feeling out the energy of the places that you go and like how they feel about you as like someone starting lower, I guess, and when to like draw the line there.
I think, if I may, if you're able to find someone in your field who is a little bit more experienced than you and just running it by anybody else and just saying, hey, does this look sketchy to you? I know I have texted Alex with like, hey, is this a weird thing? Is this just like getting anybody else's opinion about, does this seem legit to you? Does this seem like a bad idea to you? Just anybody with just a smidge more experience might help, just to run things by people.
Can I just add to, like, I don't think this is just early career, and I could be like, this could be personal, but like this sort of wrapping in with the pandemic stuff, like with the pandemic, I started doing a lot more work than I had been doing pre-pandemic. And that caused me to say, hey, maybe I need to be like making more or get a higher title or something like that. And I think for me, that was like a bit of a reckoning as I was like, no, I'm like in it now. Like, I just need to like do the job. And it's like, no, you need to check in with yourself along the way and say like, this is not just like, I think I even still had that moment of like, I'm just happy to be here and I'm like gonna do whatever and I'm gonna do whatever to keep my job. And it's like, no, I am worth more now that I have learned more and I have figured out a whole bunch of stuff that like no one was ready for this. So that, the hierarchies got kind of messed up where we had like high level producers being like, do you got any ideas? And I was like, yes, I do, but you got to pay me for them, because not necessarily each idea, but if I'm going to give more, this is it is a career. It feels often like, I feel like comedy is like your life, because you're like, I like to be funny. Like it's my passion, and it totally is. But it is also a job, and you need to be paid for your work. So my attitude.
Absolutely. Dagny, do we have more questions in the chat?
Yeah, we have a question from Emma. She asked, do you guys have any tips or advice when putting together a packet or submission of your work?
Daymon.
Yes. Okay, I saw this and I was like, oh, I know the answer. Some advice I recently got, which sounds sound to me, is that if it says they want 3 to 5 sketches, send 3 sketches. If it's like, oh, it has to be 10 to 15 pages, send 10 pages. The people reading this don't want you to be a type A and give them like the most biggest packet they've ever seen. Aim for short and aim for it to be the best short it can be. So short and your best work, I think, is probably the advice I would give for packets.
Alex?
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I completely agree with what Daymon said. And this might sound like trite advice, but like, work really fucking hard on it. I feel like a lot of people, because I've read countless packets, so many onion packets and sketch packets and such. And I feel like some writers have the tendency to do a first draft and then show it to their friend, give me some feedback, give me some notes, what do you think? And from there, it's either they'll just work on the notes that the one friend specifically gave them, and then they kind of treat it like it's a done product. That's like step 1 of 10. If you really want to make sure that like your short packet is like filled with nothing but bangers. Yeah, like, and doing multiple rounds of revisions, sitting on it for a day, coming back to it with fresh eyes. I know, similar to Maureen, I had tried multiple times to apply for the Onion Writer Fellowship before I actually got it. I don't think I got it to like my 3rd or 4th packet that I ended up submitting. So it took me years, literally, of doing it over and over again before it was able to reach that level that could be, accepted, by someone in the profession. Yeah, Yeah, just doing a lot. It just sounds like such bad advice. Like do it a lot, do a lot of rounds. But like that really is the most valuable thing, because like the more like just literal hours you put into it, the more the person reading that packet can tell that you wanted this to be a polished product, and can tell that this isn't just a first or a second draft with some edits, and then you decided to go for it, I guess.
Maureen, did you have something to add to that?
Oh yeah, just really quick. I mean, kind of with a similar point as Alex, definitely just like straight up like practical advice. Like, yeah, don't be afraid to do, like, you should be doing multiple drafts of any given packet, but also it, like, I had done so many fucking packets. Like before you're gonna have to do a lot of like, just get comfortable with the idea of doing a lot of like do every packet that you can get your hands on, because the more you do them, even if it's for different shows, it's a skill. Like you get better, the more packets you do, like it increases, like you just get better at doing them, and it's its own skill. Also just like a very practical advice kind of thing. Generally, I would say resist the temptation to write a funny cover letter. If you're applying for any kind of job where a packet they ask for a cover letter, if your cover letter has like jokes in it, it is often like a red flag, because it's just not the time for that. Like it's like it would be like going into like a job interview with like a clown nose on. You know what I mean? Like you showcase yourself as like a professional, as like a person who can follow instructions and can like communicate effectively. It like save the jokes for your like actual joke submission.
Maureen, you absolute queen, already answering this question from Jesse in the chat. I love that. X, did you have something to add? I saw you unmuting earlier.
Yeah, I just will say, because I mentioned that Potato Salad, we hosted our own late night writers workshop. So I went through over 120 submissions, and I didn't even read 120 because they didn't follow the fucking directions. Like I said, 3 sketches, you said 4. Bye, you don't fucking listen. And all of these people from The Daily Show, like Warwood Jr. is donating his time for 8 hours on a Saturday on Zoom. You cannot follow directions. So I'm not fucking with that. Also, too, I will say this, like when I submitted my packet for The Daily Show, I did everything that they said. When they asked for the sketches, let's just be honest. The Daily Show is for the white gays. Let's just be fucking clear. I'm not at all. So I wrote a sketch about the mistresses, MLK's mistresses marching on Washington, because he's, fucking everybody. And so I wrote what was funny to me. Right. So don't be, if you're submitting for a specific show, don't try to write for, like, I'm trying to figure out how to say it, but like, definitely don't submit any like wild shit, but what is funny to you, write it. Right. Because if they just wanted a robot to fucking spew out the same shit, they just get that, and, another thing that I will say is that I think a lot of times we look at comedy, singing, anything in entertainment as like a fucking God-given thing that came to you. And I would encourage everybody here to really look at writing like an athlete. That's how I look at it. Comedy is the only thing people think they can pick up in 1 week and you'd be fucking Chappelle. But you would never pick up a basketball and immediately think you're supposed to be good. You would never do that. Right? So every time I write a joke, it's a layup. Now, how many fucking layups do I need to do until I get to be Kobe? Right? So, like Alex said, to his point, I was nodding because I was like, yes, Alex, tell them, drag them. They be submitting do one joke and it ends with a pun. They be like, drag race, more like flag race. I'm not thinking that. The fuck are you doing? Do you want a job? Also, what Alex was saying, like you have to do it over and over because that is the job. I wrote jokes for 8 hours a day, sometimes 10, when Trevor had to go to the Met Gala or whatever. And for 3 years, right? A lot of my jokes were bad because it's a skill. And sometimes you don't have it, especially in the pandemic. Talk about that, Amy. I was on West Coast time. I moved back to LA, so I had to be up at 7 a.m. writing jokes and being funny, right? It's a lot. It's a skill. So I would say that too. For your packet, be obedient, do what the fuck they said. And I second Daymon, short and sweet. If they say 10 or 15, do 10. And I will say this, and I'm gonna shut up because I'm going on. My friend, who is a star, she submitted this packet. I will tell you this because a lot of EPs are stupid, right? So what happens is she submitted to write for a TV show as a narrative TV show, and they said submit 25 pages of your pilot. She submitted 25 pages. When she got to her interview, they didn't read a fucking thing. She got the interview because she sent 25 pages of her pilot, and now she's a writer for television. They asked her every question they asked her. She was just like, they didn't read my at all. Like they didn't read anything. Like they didn't know the name, main character, nothing. So I'm just telling you that like people just really want to know, can you follow directions? You know, like if you can do that, 10 steps ahead of the game.
Totally. Maureen, I saw you nodding very vigorously. Alex, I will get to you. I saw you just unmuted. Did you have something to say, Maureen?
Well, something I think about a lot with late night television is like there are very a lot of dudes. And I think often about the fact that I'm like, oh gosh, like, you know, how am I gonna today make myself be a 44-year-old man? And I can't. Like I'm gonna fail every single day if that's what I'm gonna try doing. So I mean, I'm definitely not perfect. Like I definitely have days where I'm like, dang, I failed at being a 44-year-old man. But like, I don't know. I mean, like I still need to take all of this advice myself. Like I think the days where I come out thinking like, yes, that was funny are the days when I'm like, I thought that was funny and I made other people laugh. And that I'm being very cheesy now, but that feeling is like, that's why you do it. You're like, oh my gosh, like I made my coworker laugh. I'm, you know, even if it doesn't see the light of television, because most of it doesn't, you get to have a moment where you're like, hell yeah, that was funny. And we get paid for that. like that to me is makes it worth it. But yeah, and then just like from what I see in the industry, like people who are getting, you know, jobs off of Twitter and YouTube. We have a writing team at our show who got, I mean, they submitted a packet, but they mainly got the job from their like commencement speech. So it's like, or that was something that like, you know, made them stand out. So it's them, it's you have to be yourself. And I will not lie, it is very, very, very hard. I am by no means good at it every day, but we're trying.
Alex, did you have something to add?
Yeah, to X's point about like the athlete analogy to like writing or performing or like any sort of creative art, and sort of hitting that theme of like, you know, doing it over and over and over again. I think like that's very important for like building that muscle of writing jokes or scenes or, you know, entire stories or pilots or whatever. But like, I feel like it's also super important to build that muscle of like killing your darlings, or like not getting too attached to any one idea you have. Like, don't be precious over like, I'm the greatest genius of the world for thinking of this joke. Like this joke has to go in my pilot, or like this scene has to stay in here. I feel like that can make you kind of come off maybe as being more pretentious than you want to come off as. And it could also, you know, block you from receiving like very constructive criticism that you'll need. And I feel like a lot of these places like late night shows or writers' rooms or TV productions look for people who are good at coming up with a lot of ideas and are okay with the fact that, like Kobe, maybe the first 99 shots they take don't go in, but they're going to keep shooting until they get the hoop. And you keep doing that for so long that you're going to start making shots. That doesn't mean you'll ever like not miss. Like the people who are most successful are just the most successful like at failing. Like, and they don't let that get to them, or they don't let that like, and it's still something that's hard to deal with. Like I still deal with rejection. You know, it sucks to send 25 headlines to the Onion that I worked all week on and none of them get picked. It's kind of, sometimes it's hard not to take that personally, but you can't because it's just practice. It's just taking shots. It doesn't say anything about like you fundamentally as a person, like as a creator. It's not saying that like you're not good. It's just saying keep doing it is really the message.
Totally. Carolyn, did you have something to add? I saw you nodding very vigorously.
I'm gonna like break my neck with all this. No, I think it's really, I think a point that I also wanted to make is if you have to spend a lot of time convincing someone that something's funny, it is probably not funny. And if you're in a group of people where that first time the joke is read or you say something, it doesn't hit with some sort of something, it's okay to drop it. And like, as we're saying, kill your darlings. And if someone has a better idea, roll with it. Do not fight for a bad idea that is yours to win, because nobody wins with that. So yeah, just remembering to like be collaborative and also help enjoying other people's successes. If you're in a writer's room and someone else is like absolutely killing it, that is not a loss for you. That's a win for the group. And if someone else gets a fellowship, that's someone who who you like, who just got something great. That is a win for everybody. And especially if there's only a few opportunities in comedy, and it's just important to know that someone else's win is not your loss, and to not take it personally, because it's not.
Totally. And this is kind of a specific question because Daymon, I feel like you have some specialized experience as well as UX about diversity pipelines and the various, situations that exist for people who come from marginalized backgrounds. Daymon, what was your experience submitting to OutFest and also the Bob Curry Fellowship?
Yeah.
Also context for both, like what those things are.
Totally. So Bob Curry Fellowship was here in Chicago, Second City's Diversity Fellowship. Honestly, I went to an informational meeting the year before I did it in like 2016, and I was like, I just got on a Herald team at IO. I was very misguided, and I thought, this is gonna launch my career. And then honestly, Donald Trump got elected, and I was like, I have to do something. So I need to move the needle of where I'm at. So I auditioned for the fellowship. I got it. It was interesting. It was interesting to learn about, the Second City process and like how they, do all their shows and everything. And actually a kind of a cool thing that came out of it, because I was a part of that fellowship, I got to pitch a show idea to Second City. They accepted it, Love Factually, which was a parody play of Love Actually that they performed at the Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C. So
amazing.
Yes, very nice to prove to my mother that I'm doing something. And so that ran for 2 years in DC, or 2 Christmases in DC. It was a Christmas show. And then OutFest, I think Alex was saying this, I think truly the benefit of OutFest. So that's an LA-based LGBT organization. I did, oh my gosh, I love OutFest. They are truly my gateway to Los Angeles. I did a web series called App Queen about a gay Black man who uses Grindr app too much. Where did I come up with that idea? And then got into their film festival and like their web series section. And then I took that web series and wrote a full length pilot to it and submitted it to their screenwriting lab, and that got in. And that was just so wonderful. And I was able to do it over Zoom, and just truly a gay fantasia of a week in December. I got to meet so many like screenwriters who are all queer identifying. And I was able to do like one-on-one sessions with them to talk about my pilot. It was just so great, and just made me so happy that, there is, despite what's on my TV, there are gay writers and there are gay stories that are being told, and just made me so hopeful. Does that answer the question?
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. And X, did you want to talk a little bit about your experience getting was it the UCB?
Yeah, I got the UCB Diversity Scholarship, and I think for me, what helped me get it again and again and again, and then I also was an intern, is that I am reckless when it comes to my career. Like I was at that, it was a lot of young fucking privileged ass little white kids that didn't want to fucking work. So they were always giving up their intern nights, and I would take them. I would talk to every fucking performer. I was there studying improv. I just wanted to get better at game, and I knew this could help me so much as an actor, like as like a trained actor, to have improv. Fuck, damn, it's like so good. And I just was a menace when it came to that. So as soon as they let me, they fucking cracked that door. I like busted that bitch open. So as soon as I got the first diversity scholarship, everybody knew me. You could not see me. But also I wasn't annoying, right? I was like, I was eager, but I was also like very like supportive, right? I had started my own all Black improv team called My Mama's Biscuits. We were doing our own shit, right? I was very supportive at shows. I would go see other people's shows. Like I was just trying to collaborate and work with any and everybody. So getting the diversity scholarship, I do disagree with like how it's set up at UCB because it's only 30 and it's set up with POC, LGBTQ, people over 40, disabled people, and veterans. And out of those 5, maybe 6 POCs will get it. And it sucks because we don't really continue at UCB because we don't see ourselves in the teachers. And then a lot of us are not finishing the program to be eligible to audition to be on a house team. So what I did as well to help that issue was I started a POC improv Google group. And every time I saw a Black person or person of color at UCB, at IO, at the Pit, at the Magnet, I asked them for their name and their email, and I cultivated my own list. And I asked teachers from UCB to donate their time for us for free because I'm like, we're not getting these scholarships enough. You can only get it 2 times. We're still not getting this level of training, and all our white counterparts are far surpassing us because we can't afford these classes. So I will say that when opportunities don't present themselves to you, create them, because that's what I do, and I will always work because I will always create. Like the Daily Show was great, and I'm forever grateful for that experience. But that is just the cherry on top. I was producing, I was writing, I was acting, I was very happy doing what I was doing because that's my goal, is just to do what I'm called to do. So if you are working, if you started your own late night show, if you have your own sketch comedy team and you're finding yourself frustrated, you need to ask yourself, do you want to work or do you want to be famous? Right? Like, because it's going to happen when it's supposed to happen. It's literally everyone here has done it. We've all on this panel, we've all done the work. The right person came, preparedness met opportunity, and bam, but we were working, and it will happen to you when it's supposed to happen.
Carolyn?
I will say, especially at the college level, if you are, in a marginalized group, or you do not have money, or you don't know where to look for opportunities, start by making cool shit with your friends or by yourself. Start by creating the work for yourself with $0 budgets, making sketches, just writing jokes on your own, do the crummy stand-up open mic. Just go out there and put your voice out there, and don't rely on someone to come out of the clouds with an offer for you. Create those opportunities for yourself, and don't wait for those institutions to go find you, because they will not.
And can I piggyback off of making your own stuff? This is a quote that unfortunately or fortunately, as I believe is Benjamin Franklin, comparison is the thief of joy. Like, I feel like I hear that stuff all the time, like make your own stuff, but I'm a perfectionist. I'm a Virgo. I didn't get to throw that out there, but and so I'm like, okay, but mine's not as pretty. Like, it's not as good, and that's not true. Like, I continue to get that advice, Maureen, make your stuff, and you have to believe in what you're making, and believe in what you're, thank you, and believe in in your comedy and what you think is funny, and that goes all the way back to the beginning of finding your community of people who will support you, and you guys laugh at stuff together, and you can be like, yeah, we shot this on an iPhone, yeah, the editing's a little choppy, but like, it is funny, and that's important.
And to Maureen's point, I did a very somebody had an old iPhone, like the iPhone 9 was out, and she had like a 6. And she shot this sketch of me when we had did the sketch at UCB, and Marlon Wayne's camp saw it, and I got a meeting. So it was very funny, and we did a very good job, and I fucking killed that shit. But had I been like, oh, my makeup's not done, we don't have really any costumes, it was shot on no, like it was good, right? So that really doesn't even matter. And also too, like, I feel like a lot of people tend to think like, oh, I'm starting late in the comedy game. I cannot tell you how many people I've worked with in the industry that have managerial positions and lack the managerial skill, right? You are a fucking head writer because you can fucking write. You have no emotional intelligence. You can't look me in my eye. You don't know how to construct a fucking email. Where did they find you? Right? So if you are just like, man, all I did was work at a furniture store, I worked at Target, I was working in corporate, you are great. You are like, whew, because that on top of being funny and having the entertainment part of it will be so helpful because you know how to work with people. At another point, I know people are getting found on Twitter and Instagram and just jokes, but let me tell you, if you are just doing Twitter, if you are just doing YouTube and you're not collaborating with people, that's not going to be as beneficial to you because a lot of people that worked at Twitter came to the Daily Show, they did not last because they did not know how to lose the battle, which is their joke not being picked to win the war together, which is a good fucking show. And it's the Daily Show with Trevor Noah, not with your ass, right? So that, I can't say that enough because I mean, some people are like, well, yeah, I got numbers on Twitter, I got numbers. I was like, yeah, but when we're in a writer's room, you only know how to write something funny in 140 characters or less. You don't know how to collaborate. You don't know how to lose the joke. You don't know how to be on time. Like, it's just, those things are just important. So if you're not, I've never been famous on social media ever. But if you are just like, hey, I'm hitting it on Twitter, try to definitely collaborate, get some real life collaborating experience working with somebody, because that will make you more of an asset in the writer's room. I was very bad when I got to the Daily Show. And the reason I lasted 3 years is because they liked me. Period. I wasn't a bitch.
Period.
Like, you know, like that's literally like I cannot stress to you how many things I've gotten because they're like, oh my God, yeah, she's so great. You know, or how many people that I've submitted, I got someone hired, helped to get someone hired because I didn't do it. They submitted the packet, but the person didn't even read the packet because they're like, oh, X submitted it. We love X. We're gonna love this person. Like I think it's not said enough. You got all these jokes, got all these sketches, and you're a bitch. Don't be a bitch. Don't be a bitch. That's my advice.
Maureen M, I saw you nodding. Did you have something to add? Did something resonate with you?
Oh God, I mean, oh my God. Sometimes just fell off of the stack of books that I have it on. Yeah, there's so much there. I feel like I was nodding vigorously throughout many different points in what X was saying. But yeah, I mean, I think like it is so important to not exist in a vacuum. And I do feel like social media can train you to exist only as your Twitter persona or whatever. And like, and to not really be open to collaboration. And it is really important to have those collaboration skills if you're going to function in a writer's room successfully. I mean, I think that, and I think I also want to touch on like, of course, it's all about killing your darlings. You can't like, you got to know when to drop a joke and when it's not going through and just to move on and to like, you know, have that kind of humility. I think it's also important to I mean, like Maureen K mentioned earlier, there's kind of like always this battle of how do I write for the 44-year-old white man whose voice I'm supposed to be mimicking or speaking to. And at the same time, it's a balance, right? Because there's that element, but then you also like, you didn't get hired just because you're like a robot who mimics something. They're also hiring you for your comedic voice. So like balancing those things is hard. I mean, and it varies day to day. It's not always, you know, sometimes the scale tips one way or the other where you're like, that was like a me joke, not the voice of the show that I'm supposed to be writing for, or, you know, like I'm losing my own voice and I'm only writing toward this one, this very singular identity that's not my identity. But I think just like, it's also really important to kill your darlings, to not center yourself at all times. But I think also, you also cannot assume that, I guess if a joke that you really believe in doesn't make it through, don't take it that personally, because it doesn't mean that you're not funny. It doesn't even necessarily mean that the joke was bad, but like, in order to be productive, you do kind of have to let things go. But I guess just like anecdotally, I experienced one time where I was in the writer's room for a show, and it was around the time when Amy Coney Barrett, the extremely anti-abortion, very conservative Supreme Court justice, was going through the confirmation process. And myself and the one other woman on staff, we were like really pushing to do something about abortion rights and about birth control and about reproductive justice generally. And our white male showrunner kept saying like, no, I don't really think that has legs. Like, no. We were like, we really think this idea could like work. That's so weird that he doesn't want to do that. But we let it go. And then eventually there was like an empty spot in the show where we were like, maybe we could do this Amy Coney Barrett thing. And our boss was like, all right, like give it a try, we'll see. And later, after we submitted the piece, we were like, okay, we think it's in a good place, this segment. We got a Slack from our writer's assistant telling us that this boss who had been like rejecting that idea over and over again had just had to Google what an IUD was. So it's like not necessarily like, you know, like the person may just not understand the reference because it's not their experience. And like, should they at that level? Probably yes, know what an IUD is, but like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, you can't be like, damn, that idea sucked. It's like, maybe they truly sometimes just don't have the reference that you might have, like, and they don't have your experience. And like, it's up to them to be open to experiences that are different than theirs. So don't get discouraged, I guess, if that insane thing happens to you.
I think something that I've been grappling with just working in comedy too is finding the best way to express a joke. So you have an idea, it's this guy opens his refrigerator and there's a jar of, I don't know, some idea. Is that best expressed through an Onion headline, a YouTube video? Is it a song? There are different ways to express jokes. So to Maureen's point, if something doesn't work out in some format, it can also work out in a separate format. Even if you're killing your darlings in one group setting, you can also bring it somewhere else and try it for yourself on your own.
Thank you. So we actually do have another question in the chat. So I'm going to take it back a few steps when we were talking about creating your own content and collaborating with those around you. So Emma asks, how do you get yourself to write or find inspiration when you're experiencing writer's block?
This might just be a me thing, but one method that I've sort of developed, and I kind of got this from working as a writer's assistant. You know, as a writer's assistant, your job is, the big bulk of your job is to furiously take notes in the room and try to get down all the ideas that the writers are pitching. And sort of interesting for me because you're sort of writing someone else's like brainstorming process. And similar to the writing exercise of like sitting down with a classic novel and just typing it word for word to see what it feels like to write a good novel, it was interesting to like feel like I was writing ideas that weren't mine. And I sort of parlayed that into my own writing where when I hit a block or something or I was feeling particularly unmotivated, I would just sort of type my exact inner monologue and like ask myself questions and type them out to sort of like have a literal dialogue like with myself, and would just literally type the words, well, what if in this episode, the main character just decides to kill their dad? Like what would I just spend 10 minutes, just like free brainstorm. There's nothing attached to it, but just like make sure your fingers are typing. I feel like as writers, it's very easy to get trapped in thinking space and you don't want to like commit anything to like words on a page until like you feel confident in the idea that you're coming in with. Just for me personally, just like physically writing my own self-questioning process has given me so many more interesting ideas than I would have ever just like randomly thought about in the shower or on a walk. So I'm not sure how applicable that might be to other people, but like for me personally, it's been like a very like potent tool and just like breaking through feeling like I got nothing.
Maureen K., did you have a reaction to that?
thought it was a really good idea. I was like taking a mental note. I think for me, and this might go back to the Virgo thing, I need to have a space. Like I absolutely have to treat writing like work, and it is that's me though. And I think this is kind of Alex what you said too. Like each to each their own. That I, love my bed and I love that my bed is right there. But like if I bring my laptop into my bed, I'm gonna fall asleep or watch a movie, or you know what I mean? Like it's, yeah, make it work. Set up your space, right? That always helps me. I also think like I don't know if I really said this, but I am much more of a director than a writer. And so whenever I watch a movie, I'm like, this is research, like I'm taking it in. And if I can't think of something I want to write about or work on, like I'm gonna get some inspiration. Don't like and I still have this problem, so maybe this is why I'm saying it out loud. To not like just be massively overwhelmed with how many funny people are in the world. Like I think it's so easy to like look at other stuff and be like, oh my gosh, that's hilarious. I'll never make anything as good as that. And it's like, no, dude, like you have plenty of ideas. They might be stuck. We might need to go for a walk. We might need to, go for a walk around the living room. We might need to make a cup of coffee. Like, but don't, once again, comparison is the thief of joy. Like you have plenty of, you have your space, your brain, your stuff to work on. And I think that, yeah, I don't know, I'm rambling now, but those are my tips.
Totally.
Can I just briefly piggyback off that point about like not getting, overwhelmed by how many talented people there are? This might sound like a cynical note or something, but something that's sort of helpful for me to have realized too is like, there's also a lot of untalented people in the industry that like don't work hard, and that like you're perplexed how they could even get into this position, but they did. And like I guarantee like all the students that are listening to this, like you are already more talented than people who are working in this industry. Like you already are harder workers. Sometimes it can be, you don't really have access to that because, you're not in the industry yet. It seems so intimidating. Everyone else has made it and you haven't. Totally not the case. There are so many people that deserve to be replaced by you. And I think like keeping that in mind is like helpful for like building your confidence, whether you're performing, writing, directing, whatever it is. Everyone who's working is not some like immaculate genius that you can never hope to achieve. Chances are you're probably smarter than them anyways.
Absolutely. And since we only have 10 minutes left, I was wondering if our panelists, if you have any kind of social media handles or like websites or anything that you wanted to plug, please take a little bit of time now. Drop it in the chat. We have 37 people here, 31, I guess, subtracting all of you that would love to know. So I invite you to do that right now, if you would like. And then as people are typing, I think I just want to reiterate that this event is being recorded, and panelists, you will also receive the video. It's going to be published as an unlisted YouTube link, and it will be sent out to all of the people who are here, participants, as well as people who registered on Handshake. So that is, you'll be able to access this again and hear all of our panelists' wonderful words. And it will probably also be sent out in a newsletter or two, which you can opt into by filling out this Google form that I will be currently dropping in the chat as well.
I just wanted to say something for a resource for everyone that was very helpful for me. And I didn't find it until I was at the Daily Show, but it was very helpful. It's a book called What Are You Laughing At? And it's not funny at all. It is about, Maureen, she's got it. Come on, MK. Yes. Yes, queen. And it literally like breaks down the science of a joke. Like just because someone's laughed, is it a joke? Like you get to really get into like the science of it. So I think that was a really helpful tool for me. Like after I got to the Daily Show, is that book, the book, What Are You Laughing At? And also for people who want to start their own stuff. I will say this, I started Potato Salad with no money, but I had to start. I found a free theater. I asked someone, you network like this. So I asked someone who was like, up and coming in graphic design. Can you make this flyer for me for free? My homeboy had just started cooking. I was like, can you make the cookout bites for the, another person was starting a liquor line. I was like, can you provide the shots? Like my homeboy DJ'd on the side. He DJ. So you really, if you build it, they will come. But potato salad is now, morphed into, a bigger show. We have a bigger budget, but you can scroll on my Instagram and you can see our very humble beginnings, what those promo videos used to look like. And I keep that there because I want people to see the growth, and you just have to start.
Totally. I have no idea how I am going to follow this up. I don't like the end of virtual events is always so weird, isn't it? So yes, I just want to thank all of you for coming. And I was wondering if any of you had like any kinds of closing words of advice or, impactful things that you will be, taking with you from this panel, or any kind of concluding sentiments. Yes, Daymon.
Yeah, I was thinking about it because I peeped the accidental message in the chat. But
wow. Okay. What happened to mind your business?
Yeah, but it leads into this: take advantage of things. I would say, I know that you guys are DePaul students, and I think as you're graduating, I would just advise you not to get lost in always feeling like a student and always feeling like you need to pay for a class or pay for coaching. Like during the pandemic, I really got into Survivor, so much so that Amy knows this. I wrote a short film about Survivor.
It's
I
good.
love it so much. But the way to win Survivor is to make big moves. And if you are tentative and hesitant, you don't win Survivor. The people who win make big moves on that island. So do that. Move to the city where you want to make work. Buy a car if you want to drive to New York or LA or something. But like, just don't be passive with what you want to do with your career. And also, this is some good advice I got from a very good writer, Shantira Jackson. Live your life, like especially if you want to like be a more narrative writer. Have a life, go on dates, go to dinner with your family, get yelled at by your mom, like get life experiences, and don't just get lost in all of this. Watch Survivor.
Maureen M.
Yeah, just really quickly, kind of going back to what Alex said earlier about just about like you are good enough. I guess I just want to reiterate that like you are going to feel not good enough so frequently, and that's natural, but you just have to remember that you are in fact good enough. Like there's an Onion headline that has always stuck with me that's like, to paraphrase, it's like, report today the day they all find out you're a fraud. And it like just speaks to this universal experience of feeling like a fraud all the time. And like that was written like, I like grew up like idolizing Onion writers, and an Onion writer wrote that about their experience of feeling like a fraud. So like if they can feel like a fraud, like everybody feels like a fraud. And in fact, like the people who don't have imposter syndrome, I feel like are normally like the imposters. Like it's like so natural to have imposter syndrome, and it's just like you're never probably gonna like fully conquer it. It's like a daily battle. You just have to like wake up every day, be like, no, I am good enough, I am qualified, my experiences are enough to propel me through this business, and I can do this.
Maureen K.
So definitely listen to everything that they just said. I feel like I've said a lot of cheesy stuff. This is my non-cheesy thing. I took an editing 1 class at DePaul. I was a theater student. I took an editing 1 class at DePaul where I learned the basics of Premiere. And to this day, I use Premiere in my job every day. Now, I know you guys are mostly not theater students, I'm guessing. I think you're probably mostly film students and you've probably already taken that. But my point being, if there's a class where you're like, hey, I'm kind of interested in this, once again, listen to what Daymon said, definitely first. You guys are capable, all of that. But while you're in school and you are able to take a class, take that class, and nobody cares. Maybe this is just me, nobody cares what your major is. So if you learn a skill that's like how to act in a writer's room, how to bounce jokes off each other. I, to this day, remember taking like a screenwriting something class where we just like all got to write our own stuff. And it like, I think back to like, what did that feel like? That's what it should feel like, because it was so safe and so supportive. And yeah, so learning those kind of skills, it doesn't matter if you like got the minor in screenwriting or whatever, like learning the skills I think is super important.
Carolyn, did something resonate with you there?
Oh, everything resonated with me. Yeah, the one thing that I would say is don't forget that there are creatives everywhere. And for someone to be worth your time to connect with, they do not have to come from The Onion or The Daily Show or Second City. They can be a dishwasher at your job. They can be the server that you have a great conversation with at a restaurant. They can be a florist. There are creatives everywhere. And my main thing is to not rely on those institutions to tell you who a smart person is or who a funny person is, because they really are everywhere. Just keep making cool stuff with your friends, and yeah, keep reinventing the forums. Don't be afraid to take big risks.
Alex?
I just have some like last parting words of advice, I guess. Mainly, I don't know how many of the people here are like writers or going into writing. So I guess my advice is just from that particular point of view, but stretch. I feel like sometimes I can get very fidgety just sitting behind my laptop all day trying to think of ideas. And it can get, writing is as much a physical activity as it is a mental activity, even though it doesn't seem like it. And just like literally having physical stamina enough to like sit at a desk for like 5 hours, if it, gets you to finish that draft or gets you to get to that whatever, checkpoint you set for yourself. Yeah, I mean, like I've had to work on my posture for years, and like I'm finally getting at a point where I can like look at myself in the mirror and not be horrified at what I see. And it has made a difference. Like the longer you can like literally just sit in front of your screen or just sit there with a notebook and a pencil, like it is meaningful, I suppose. That might sound like incredibly trite, stupid advice, but like it matters. I've been through so many times where I felt physically drained or discouraged enough to just not write that day because I didn't want to sit at my desk. I just wanted to lay down, and just literally getting more physically comfortable with sitting up and like typing like this, like the physical motion of that was really key to help me like get over those humps whenever they came my way.
Absolutely. And
also just
yes,
read books. Don't just watch movies. Don't just like go to comedy shows or whatever. Like read books, novels, like nonfiction. Just like my imagination has expanded more from reading books than it has from like reading other people's screenplays or watching movies. I feel like not enough people read books. That's my old man spiel.
listen, I'm right there with you. I'm a big reader too. And on that wonderful note, I would like to take a moment to thank my co-moderator Dagny, and also Maureen, Alex, Carolyn, Maureen K, Daymon, and X for donating so much of your time on this very random Tuesday evening. And yeah, feel free to follow each other. Feel free to follow up with any other questions that you have. And I hope that all of you come to the Career Center for an appointment or connect with these people on LinkedIn or read all of Alex's tweets. Because you said, yeah, no. And have a wonderful rest of your evening.
Thank you everyone for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yes, thank you. All right, bye.
Bye.
How's it going?